This program is brought to you by Link TV for educational and non-commercial use only. Mosaic, a daily news program from Link TV, presents a selection of news reports from independent and state-controlled broadcasters from throughout the Middle East.
Iranian President Ahmadinejad said that the basic reason for the enmity from world powers against his country is due to Iran's rejection of the unfair regime that rules the world. Speaking to reporters in Istanbul, Ahmadinejad expressed hopes for his country and Turkey to sign a natural gas and electricity agreement. During a joint press conference with the Iranian president yesterday, Turkish President Abdullah Gül said that his country will put effort into supporting the diplomatic option towards solving the crisis of Iran's nuclear program. Joining us from Istanbul is the bureau chief of Al Jazeera office, Yusuf Al-Sharif. Yusuf, did this visit meet its expectations?
The Turkish expectations were not achieved, but Iranian expectations were. President Ahmadinejad was trying to prove to the West that he is not isolated by visiting a country that is aiming to join the European Union, is a member of NATO, and is also an ally of the United States. He also wanted to strengthen bilateral relations with Turkey. This goal was achieved from the Iranian side, but here on the Turkish side, Turkey was hoping to influence the Iranian position in the nuclear negotiations. I was also just informed that President Abdullah Gül met for a second time with the Iranian president today. He was once again trying to influence his position. Abdullah Gül reminded his Iranian guest of the fate of Iraq and its previous regime. He told him to take the matter seriously, saying that Iran should not count on its belief that the U.S. presence in the area is weakening and that the U.S. cannot do anything against Iran. Abdullah Gül urged Ahmadinejad to start negotiations with the West based on their new offer and not to dismiss it. But we did not hear anything from the Iranian side saying that Ahmadinejad's position has changed. He simply heard and thanked the Turkish side for offering the advice and thanked Turkey for its role in the area. But nothing has changed. In regards to the bilateral relations, Turkey did not secure the gas trade accord to extract Iranian gas and transport it to Europe. According to the Turkish side, Iran's conditions were difficult and impossible to accept. So, from the Turkish point of view, we can say that the visit did not meet the expectations. Another important point is that the two sides agreed that both Iran and Turkey have an important and central role in the region's stability. During the press conference today, Al Jazeera asked Ahmadinejad about his statement on Iran being prepared to fill the security void in Iraq in case of U.S. withdrawal. He corrected the question and said it was not Iran alone, but Iran and the other countries in the region. So he was talking about a regional collaboration. He also said that Iran and Turkey complete each other. In short, we can say that Iran wants to cooperate with Turkey in the area, but away from the nuclear issue. Iran wants this cooperation to fall within revolutionary principles, which include ending the U.S. presence in the area completely. However, the Turkish view on future cooperation is different. According to sources from the Turkish Foreign Ministry, their views are more realistic. So, both sides want to cooperate in the area within a Turkish-Arab-Iranian framework, but the disagreement is in the details and the spirit of this cooperation. Iran wants it immediately, but Turkey wants more deliberation and wants it to adapt to the reality on the ground. This is especially the case in regards to the two sides' differing views about the Palestinian issue and the Arab-Israeli struggle.
Thank you very much, Al Jazeera Bureau Chief of Office Yusuf Al-Sharif from Istanbul.
من جديد أهلا بكم. رغم تضارب الأنباء حول المقترح الإسرائيلي الجديد المقدم للفلسطينيين.
There are contradictory news reports about the new Israeli shelf agreement that was presented to the Palestinians. This means that this agreement will be implemented at a later time when the conditions are right. However, this new proposal is similar to previous Israeli proposals, which the Palestinians have repeatedly refused.
المقترح الإسرائيلي بالأساس يدور حول الحدود.
In principle, the new Israeli shelf agreement proposal, which is focused on establishing permanent borders, is slightly different from the Israeli offer at the Taba negotiations, which took place after the Camp David negotiations of 2000. According to the new Israeli proposal, the total size of the areas that Israel is proposing to be included within the future Palestinian state, of course in addition to Gaza, is 93% of the West Bank. Therefore, Israel wants to keep 7% of the West Bank. According to the new proposal, Israel refuses to hand over to the Palestinians areas that have unique qualities. Israeli settlements are concentrated on these areas, which are located around Jerusalem and in the northern and southern parts of the West Bank, in addition to other settlement blocks. The northern and southern settlement blocks are built on the largest Palestinian aquifers, which enables Israel to control them. Meanwhile, keeping the Ma'aleh Adumim settlement block around Jerusalem enables Israel to control it. The Israeli offer includes exchanging these areas where settlements were built with an area from the Negev desert that will be added to Gaza. According to leaked reports, the size of this area is equal to 5% of the West Bank. The rest will be compensated to the Palestinians with a safe corridor between the West Bank and Gaza, which will stay under Israeli sovereignty. Olmert's proposal is halfway between the Taba and Camp David proposals. Israel refuted reports about the Palestinians' right of return. Olmert said that he did not propose returning any Palestinian refugee except in special cases in the framework of what is known as family unifications. Meanwhile, negotiations about Jerusalem, which is the second most complicated issue after the issue of the refugees, have not started yet. The Israeli proposal comes 9 months after the Annapolis conference and as the Israeli government is facing a political storm.
The IDF has closed its investigation into the death of Reuters cameraman Fadel Shana'a during an IDF operation in the Gaza Strip in April 17th. The report determined that the conduct of the tank crew, who erroneously identified Shana'a as an armed gunman and fired on him, acted according to procedure. IBA's Leah Stern has more details.
This shocking video documents the moments after Reuters cameraman Fadel Shana'a was killed by IDF tank fire 4 months ago. The 24-year-old Reuters stringer was on assignment in Gaza City during an IDF operation in the area. He was filming 2 IDF tanks 1.5 kilometers away over the Gaza border. The chilling final 2 seconds of his video shows one tank firing a shell that burst overhead. Shana'a's footage went black. He was killed by shrapnel. 8 Palestinian youth also lost their lives in the attack. An IDF investigation into the incident said that the soldiers acted properly and will not face legal action. Military advocate Brigadier General Avi Mendelblit said that the tank's crew and its commanding officers reasonably concluded that the characters were hostile and were carrying an object most likely to be a weapon, suggesting that Shana'a's camera was mistaken for a shoulder-held missile launcher. Troops were also suspicious because Shana'a and his soundman were wearing body armor common to Palestinian terrorists. The IDF was also on high alert in the area because soldiers and tank crews were attacked several hours earlier by mortar shells. Shana'a's employer, Reuters International News Agency, was extremely disappointed by the report, saying that the IDF conclusion severely curtails the freedom of the media.
We're clearly looking at our legal options. We're not satisfied with this report. This puts us in the position where journalists cannot raise a camera in the presence of Israeli soldiers without the risk of being fired on, and we find that unacceptable. And we're going to be discussing with the Israeli officials how we can improve the safety of our journalists in future.
The Israeli army has a long history of running away for their responsibility when it comes to killing of innocent journalists.
A monument for Shana'a has been placed in front of the Reuters office in Gaza, where the slain cameraman has become a local hero. This is Leah Stern for IBA News.
Hezbollah Secretary-General Hassan Nasrallah welcomed the results of the Lebanese president's visit to Damascus. Syria and Lebanon have reached an agreement to establish diplomatic relations, which was announced in a speech given during the commemoration ceremony of the second anniversary of the war with Israel in 2006. Nasrallah accused Israel of trying to assassinate more Hezbollah leaders and called on the Lebanese to work towards achieving political stability.
Without a doubt, this visit marks a new phase. It indicates an important change in the Syrian-Lebanese relations. We hope that no one obstructs or derails these efforts. I say to the Zionists, we are not afraid of you. We have never feared you any day. Say and do whatever you want. We know that you are planning for more assassinations and killings of resistance leaders. This, however, will not push us backwards.
Acting Speaker of the Palestinian Parliament, Dr. Ahmed Bar, called on the Palestinian people to unite in the face of the Zionist arrogance. He also stressed the importance of preserving the national principles.
Through this conference, and in the name of the Palestinian people, and in the name of the head of the Legislative Council, Dr. Aziz Dweig, we call on the Palestinian people to unite in the face of the Zionist arrogance. Through this conference, and in the name of the Legislative Council, we call on our brothers in the Fatah and the Hamas movement to sit down at the table of brotherhood and try to find common denominators. We call for a dialogue that is based on preserving the national principles and that is based on the liberation of Jerusalem.
According to the Palestinian Central Bureau of Statistics, the number of Zionist intruders living in occupied Jerusalem has jumped 36 times from 1972 to 2007. The report said that most of the Zionist intruders are concentrated in occupied Jerusalem, as opposed to other West Bank cities.
Meanwhile, the Palestinian Central Bureau of Statistics issued its annual report on the expansion of Zionist settlements in the Palestinian territories. According to the report, the number of settlements in the occupied West Bank had reached 440 by the end of 2007, with occupied Jerusalem given the lion's share. Jerusalem has more than 26 settlements, followed by the governorate of Ramallah and Al-Bira. The data also shows the size of the area that the Palestinians are banned from entering, which stands at nearly 38.3% of the West Bank. According to the report, the number of settlers living in the West Bank in 2007 is 39 times larger than it was in 1972. Meanwhile, the Zionist occupation is continuing to double the number of its settlements in the occupied West Bank, capitalizing on the silence of the international community. The occupation is also using its useless negotiations with the Palestinian Authority as a cover-up to continue its projects on the ground.
Hundreds of Israeli companies land in Iraq under Arab cover and with American support.
Israel is the largest economic player in Iraq after its companies have had free rein in the Iraqi market and have participated in the country's reconstruction. Nearly 500 Israeli companies have entered the country. The most prominent is one that belongs to the former chief of staff, former minister Imnon Shahad, and the former political advisor to the war minister Ahmed Bar. The largest of these companies are Tulil Bon Ona for construction, Sim for land and sea transport, Aronson for infrastructure, Kardan Mia Africa Israel, an Israeli company for water treatment, Bazan, which operates oil refineries, Amnat, Therpol, and Odium, which signed a contract with occupation forces to erect a public telephone network in Iraq, Othim for good products, Tami Arba for water treatment, the Tudan company, which exports old buses, Ribentex, which exports bulletproof vests, Shirinot Hosim, which makes strong doors, Eitz Karmail, which makes doors and other products for border points, Tambur for paints, Temyun produces beer and other light alcoholic drinks, Thridur, which produces barbed wires, Thirnogras produces speed bumps, Geikum, which produces phones, Sakal makes electronic products, Nanthel, which produces irrigation systems, Sonol for oil, Delta, which produces textiles and many other products. These companies sell their products to Iraqi residents after repackaging them in order to hide their source. These companies work through secret contracts with U.S. company Bechtel, which is headed by the former U.S. Foreign Secretary George Shultz, or with other Arab companies. America advised Israel to enter into secret contracts with Arab companies that can provide their companies cover. Interestingly, Lebanese businessmen also work in Iraq. How can they work with these companies, which have control over most of the sectors in Iraq? Previous reports indicated that a Jordanian circuit opened after an agreement between some Jordanian truck companies and Israeli companies to transport Israeli food products, vegetables, and fruits from Israel to supply the U.S. occupation forces, despite denials by the Jordanian Trucking Guild, reiterating that these contracts and deals are done on an individual basis and do not require a permit from the Guild. The U.S. Secretary of Commerce gave serious advice to the Israeli companies to merge with Jordanian companies in order to enter the Iraqi market, whose profit value is estimated to be between $650 billion to $1 trillion. Information has been confirmed that an American team is now preoccupied with studying the possibility of opening an oil pipeline between the cities of Haifa and the city of Kirkuk in northern Iraq. It was the line that had been in operation up until 1948.
Pakistani President Pervez Musharraf, who is under pressure to resign, called for achieving political stability and reconciliation to solve the security issues affecting the country. In turn, Prime Minister Yusuf Reza Giuliani called on persisting in the fight against extremism. On the occasion of the 61st anniversary of Pakistan's independence, Giuliani confirmed his government's commitment to reconciliation between the various political blocs.
Pakistan's Independence Day was a national occasion celebrated by the government and the people. The special day deepened feelings of belonging and love for the country, solidifying the principles of Pakistan's establishment. But the occasion was not free from controversy, primarily the political disagreements in the country, which negatively affect safety and security. Pakistan's President, Pervez Musharraf, took the opportunity to highlight his achievements, but he avoided talking about the demand for his impeachment. He urged leaving disagreements behind and used the language of reconciliation.
Our country needs political stability to solve the economic and security problems. This is achieved through national reconciliation.
The Prime Minister of Pakistan, Yusuf Raza Gilani, gave the opening speech on this special occasion. He set clear signposts for his government's path in its war against the so-called terrorism and the security tension in the country. He indirectly criticized Musharraf's policy by saying that the dictatorship and single rule in the country should be fought.
The government was elected democratically, and we will work on protecting democracy. We will not permit single rule and dictatorship.
The festive mood came only a few days before the political battle inside the House of Parliament between Musharraf and his opponents. The government and its allied blocs will present the list of charges against Musharraf to proceed in the impeachment process.
The coalition
of the government and its allied blocs are exerting pressure on Musharraf to force him to resign. Otherwise, he will be impeached by the parliament. There is no doubt that Musharraf's position is very weak.
Pressure on the president.
In spite of Musharraf's call for national reconciliation, his rivals vowed to impeach him, while others vowed to try him. Sadek Bilal, Al-Alam, Islamabad.
One person was killed and 7 others were injured when Indian police opened fire at Muslim protesters. The protesters demanded for Kashmir's independence from India. The protest turned into a violent confrontation after the police shot live bullets to disperse the protesters. These protests were triggered by the Indian government's decision to take land that belonged to Muslims and give it to a Hindu trust in Srinagar, near the capital of Kashmir.
Officials say they've killed more than 450 Taliban and Al-Qaeda fighters in the Peshawar region. They also lost 22 of their own troops in 10 days of fighting. The civilian casualties are not yet known. People are fleeing in large numbers, but as Dorsa Jabari reports, no one knows where they are running to.
They are fleeing any which way they can. These people are desperate to get away from weeks of fierce fighting between Pakistan's military and alleged Al-Qaeda and Taliban fighters in the country's northwestern region. The mass exodus comes after government officials dropped pamphlets urging residents in the Bajur region to leave. And this is why military helicopters continue to bomb and shell suspected Taliban targets. But that does not seem to be deterring any of the local fighters.
Only the women and children are migrating. All the men are staying. We and the people of the area are ready to fight together, and that will be in self-defense.
But these men are not staying around to fight. They have been fortunate enough to find transport to get out of the area and carry whatever belongings they can. With nowhere to go and no idea when they'll be able to return home, they're seeking shelter in the town of Shapkadar, near the regional city of Peshawar.
We came from Baju and are heading for the Peshawar because of bombing in our area. Everyone is leaving the area. All of us are facing a lot of problems.
So far, the government has failed to set up any support system to accommodate these refugees. Those that are assisting them along the way are all local volunteers.
The government has not set up any relief system or any camps for these innocent people. They are arriving in a very bad position. Some people don't have anything with them at all. The people of our area and I are here to help them voluntarily.
As the fighting continues to spread across the tribal areas and no end in sight for these government military operations, these locals do the only thing they can: run as far away as possible from the fighting, and not knowing if they will ever be able to return to their homes. Dorsa Jabari, Al Jazeera.
Russia's invasion of Georgia makes headlines across the Middle East. What does it mean for Arab states? Are oil prices behind it? And what's the connection with Israel? Answers to these questions and more on Link TV's Mosaic Intelligence Report.
It is very unusual in the Middle East to turn on the television or read a newspaper without finding a major story about a new development in Iraq, Lebanon, Iran, Israel, and Palestine. However, this week was different. The crisis in the Caucasus stole the headlines, but it was not for lack of important news in the Middle East. Just recently, Lebanon was rocked by another devastating explosion. Tensions over Kirkuk continue, and the death of a Palestinian legendary poet brought tears to millions. But it was the Russian-Georgian confrontations which remained an important story, with most news editors in the region linking the crisis in the Caucasus to what is happening in the Middle East. What goes around comes around. This is how one of the editorials in a major Arab newspaper described the Georgian ordeal. The writer went on to poke fun at Georgia for having to withdraw its troops from the occupation of Iraq, which it obviously approves of, to try to prevent a possible occupation of Georgia, which it seems to consider a bad idea.
Do they have to destroy and attack a civilized world like the Mongolians did? They don't want Abkhazia, nor Skinvale, not even Georgia. They just don't want the freedom, and that's why they want to stamp on Georgia and destroy it.
On a very popular talk show on Al Jazeera, a guest dismissed the Russian incursion into Georgian territories as having nothing to do with the vicious conflict over South Ossetia, but rather with the price of oil. According to him, with oil prices having dropped from $145 a barrel to $115 in just 2 weeks, only an armed conflict could push prices higher. This is a great benefit to both Russia's economy as well as those oil-producing countries in the Persian Gulf. This has yet to be proven true. Meanwhile, there is no exciting debate or conversation on Arab TV that does not discuss the US double standards in the region. Arab commentators had a field day with the president's statements declaring the Russian invasion of Georgia disproportionate and unacceptable, and that great powers should not go about toppling governments in the 21st century as if he had never done such a thing. There was also the Israeli connection. However, this debate did not start in the Arab, but rather the Israeli media. According to the Jerusalem Post, Israeli companies sold military equipment to Georgia worth approximately $300 million. The story then took off in the Arab media when the story of a Russian jet downing an Israeli-made drone in Georgia was reported, as well as the role that retired senior Israeli officers have played as advisors to the Georgian security forces. Both Arab and Israeli media reported that the Georgian Defense Minister, David Gesevarchili, is a Jew who attended high school in Israel.
I looked the man in the eye. I found him to be very straightforward and trustworthy. I was able to get a sense of his soul.
Something everyone in the Middle East wondered was, what did President Bush really see when he looked in Putin's eyes? I'm Jamal Dajani for the Mosaic Intelligence Report. To learn more about this program or to share your thoughts, visit us at linktv.org/mosaic.
I'm Amy Goodman, host of Democracy Now!, here to ask you for support for Mosaic, world news from the Middle East. You know, in media news, a new study shows that corporate news coverage of the Iraq War has dropped sharply in the last 4 months. According to the Project for Excellence in Journalism, the Iraq War accounted for just 15% of news coverage, 19% of the network evening newscasts. We need more coverage of the Middle East, not less. We are talking right now about living in a time of war. And it is up to us in a democratic society to decide what to do about that. Mosaic provides information from the Middle East, from countries in the Middle East, from a Middle Eastern perspective. It is invaluable. And right now they need $200,000 to continue their work, to continue their coverage, to bring you their fall lineup of this essential program. The number to call to make your pledge is 866-485-8848. That's 866-485-8848. You can also pledge online at linktv.org. Please pledge as much as you can. Information is power. When you have information, you are empowered to do something about it. That's what Mosaic provides. Again, they're trying to raise $200,000. In order to do this, you can be a small or large part of that. Pledge 25, pledge 50, pledge 200, pledge 500. Mosaic needs you. If you've needed Mosaic for information, now they're asking you to help them reach their goal. That number again is 866-485-8848. That's 866-485-8848. Make your pledge, make it now. You can also pledge online at linktv.org. That number is the lifeline for Mosaic. 866-485-8848. Make the call that makes the difference. This is viewer-sponsored media. You are the engine of this program. Mosaic provides a unique perspective from many different countries in the Middle East. Please give your support to independent media, 866-485-8848. And thanks so much.
The views expressed on Mosaic are those of the participating broadcasters, not Link TV or its sponsors. The production of Mosaic is made possible with the support of viewers like you. Thank you. This program was brought to you by Link TV for educational and non-commercial use only. Link TV is the only U.S. television network devoted to global and national news, with uncompromising documentaries and diverse cultural programs. Programs which connect you to the world.